So this is just after 1300 hours GMT on Saturday, the 20th of March 2021. And this is the part B of the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast online, that is only on the internet from London. And we have got, that is the bag full of the Saturday newspapers, also known as Fleet Street. And this lot costs £19.45 in the UK price today. So they convert the price into the Pakistani rupee, Indian rupee, and the Bangladeshi taka, and it will be nearly 2,000 rupees or takas or whatever in the local currencies. And this is the kind of collection of the various extras on The Guardian. Now, The Guardian reveals that corruption under the COVID-19 furlough scheme by the crooks cabal fronted by Boris Johnson is benefiting the likes of this one. Now this one is called Dubai's, and I put the kind of word coming up within quotation marks, ruler within quotation marks, Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. He is the one who has been keeping several women, including his daughters, a number of daughters, captive in Dubai, and has had them, or some of them, at least two of them, kidnapped from locations in the UK. And he has got access to billions of pounds, equivalents of the resources that belong to the people of Dubai. And Dubai, of course, is one of the playgrounds that the imperialists, the neo-imperialists and their surrogates and their likes have been flocking to in order to pervert the course of people's access to the people's resources. The Guardian, is being too timid in the headline. It doesn't say the Fala corruption. The Fala corruption, which is what this is about, is being disguised by the Guardian typically. When I say typically, I refer to the behavior of Alan Rubisher. Rusbridger was the editor before Cat Vine, the current one. And Rubisher was in post as editor of the Guardian for too long. Too long because of his propensity to lying and faking and hiding and suppressing and denying. Of course, marginally, when compared to his predecessor, who was in that post for too long, Preston was, like Beaverbrook, a poisonous racist, anti-Muslim, Muslim hater. Whereas Alan Rusbridger, whom we call Rubisher, based on his conduct, he was a crafty, creepy kind of liar. Preston was a liar as well, but this one, Rubisher, was a liar in a different kind of craftiness. And Alan Rusbridger, Alan is spelled with an A-L-A-N. Alan Rusbridger was the one that contributed kind of longest period of the Guardian, if you like, collusion with the English local councils And by local councils, we actually imply and mean on the evidence crooks in councils, crooks elected councillors, their employees, so-called, and the rest of the administration. Most of the councils in England, most of them, not every single one of them, but the differences are very insignificant differences. Essentially, the local councils in England, which are supposed to be locally, democratically kind of elected representations of the local people. But when they get elected for the periods, normally 4 years, until the next election, these elected ones, regardless of the party, either in the main, the UK, England, English councils, mainly dominated by Conservatives and Labour Party, party-wise. But in terms of morality, in terms of ethics and democracy and transparency, there is really no significant difference between them or among them. You will not find this in any press review or press preview, let alone coming across any press diagnosis of Fleet Street or the media. So across England, demographically, that is to do with the numbers of people that are in the UK. The one area that is England has got the most people from England. So every institution is numerically represented in England more than in any other components of the United Kingdom, within quotes. And what happens with the councils is that they need kind of propaganda, and the subsidiary to the propaganda, or the kind of next kind of form of lying, is of course in disguised items published as news or comments, etc., in organs and titles like the Guardian, that are not brazenly kind of, or starkly, or obviously, or actually kind of admitted to be propaganda or advertisements. But the line, the narrative that the councils want promoted, disguised as kind of comments, are put in the form of letters, in the form of features. And as happened in Tower Hamlets, or in the case of Tower Hamlets, during the calendar years, let's say 2010, up to the 23rd of April 2015, when Lutfur Rahman was in place as incumbent mayor, at the expense, note what I'm saying, the phrase, at the expense of, or in the name of, Tower Hamlets electors. And throughout those calendar years, whatever the total numbers, the Guardian employed a man called Hill, Dave Hill. Now, Dave Hill ran the so-called London blog on the Guardian during the period of Lutfur Rahman's incumbency in that corrupt post, or rather Lutfur Rahman's corrupt incumbency in that corrupt post of elected mayor at the expense of the people of Tower Hamlets, or the expense of the electors of the London Borough of Tower Hamlets. And Dave Hill did the meandering, in denial, perpetration of lies, hiding the truth about the corruption by Tower Hamlets Council, in Tower Hamlets Council, of Tower Hamlets Council. I organized the campaign called Bangilar. Bangilar is a Silati word, like Khoodeelaar is another Silati language word. And it's created in order to represent the most people who would be affected by the remit of the campaign, who are Silati speakers. That is the reason. There is no Bengali word or Bangla word that is remotely like Bangilar. Anything that can be constructed as translation of the Bangilar word will have to have two components or three components, and it hardly has the same impact. Anyone imagining, let's say, the French word oh yeah, in its actual historic contextual kind of noise, oh yeah was a cry to awaken people and to give them warnings, etc., about impending doom and disaster. So when I conceived of the word Khoodeelaar in Siloti, in Siloti pronunciation it is Khoodeelaar, but in English I have to say Khoodeelaar in a different kind of diction. The point is that Khoodeelaar was a cry as well as a call. A cry is the warning cry, and a call is to mobilize. Okay, and also inherent in that is the description of what was happening. That is to say, the enemy is or the enemies are coming to our territory, our neighborhood, our area to dig us out of here. The very explanation that I gave in, I think, May 2004 or 2005 at a meeting held at the Montefiore Center in Hanbury Street to discuss the so-called Crossrail plan at the time. And they had two men from Crossrail. One was a African origin man who was there as a kind of propagandist or publicity person. And there was a white man who was the main technical person explaining the so-called technical factors about Crossrail going through Brick Lane. And of course, as anyone watching this would know historically, factually what we have been doing. In December 2003, I and K. Jordan decided to oppose the Crossrail plan. And in December 2003, the campaign against Crossrail Hole was born. Now, all these were taking place, the campaign and the opposition to the attackers of Brick Lane and the area, while the Tower Hamlets Council, that was 7 years before anyone really heard of a person called Lutfur Rahman. And the obscurity, the ordinary obscurity in which Lutfur Rahman had existed was the ordinary, natural way of things. Like today, 2021, in effect, all the councillors in place now with the votes of Bangladeshi people in Tower Hamlets are in obscurity. And that obscurity has been kind of embraced by them by their own corrupt decision, selfish decision to maintain a career, get the allowances, get the money, and get the platforms. Like when they talk to other Bangladeshi ordinary people, they say they're councillors. The chests up, chest out, and they feel very, very fulfilled. Now, these fulfillments are acts of disgrace and scandal because they are actually politically, ethically, and morally in context, they are dead. They are not delivering the service, not delivering the democracy, not delivering the questioning, and not delivering the accountability. So Dave Hill, remember what we're talking about, the Guardian. Dave Hill was the Guardian's London blogger. And in every kind of blog about Tower Hamlets, he found way to meander, to go off the actual facts and find some kind of excuse and some kind of kind of denial, a phrase of denial of the truth. So that's what was happening. Alan Rusbridger or Rabisha was in situ, in place as the Guardian's editor. Apart from Dave Hill, or in addition to Dave Hill, Alan Rusbridger, who has been married to a woman called Lindsay McKee, or who has had partner as his partner, Lindsay McKee, allowed Lindsay McKee, or was aware of Lindsay McKee becoming a partner in the corrupt project called a report, which was allegedly so-called, I mean, it was a corrupt outfit altogether. And it was chaired by another crook called Giles Fraser. Now, Giles Fraser kind of created a persona for himself, which was trendy in the sense of the Guardian. Not trendy really, but in the sense of the Guardian, as associated with the Guardian, because he was given a platform by Alan Rusbridger to write a column. And Tower Hamlets Council, the bureaucracy, with the active participation of Lutfur Rahman as the incumbent post holder of the corrupt post at the expense of Tower Hamlets, in the name of Tower Hamlets electors, in the post of elected mayor. So they had a report about poverty in Tower Hamlets. But it wasn't poverty at all. It was a complete, utter, deliberately intended denial of the truth about poverty in Tower Hamlets. And Giles Fraser became a kind of trendy after typically absolutely shallow occupiers that surrounded the St. Paul's Cathedral for a few months. And Giles Fraser was a minor kind of clergy in the St. Paul's Cathedral. And so what he found in the kind of occupation of the foregrounds, if you like, of the St. Paul's Cathedral was an opportunity to create a platform for himself. So Giles Fraser, who is on the record as having lied about his origins and to have invented a persona and a kind of type of attributes about his records long before the St. Paul's thing happened, then did what he did best or worst. He reinvented himself in a way that was trendy and that gave him space and platforms on The Guardian as news of the occupation. It is a completely false, fabricated kind of faux occupation, as the French would say, faux occupation, false. But Giles Fraser became a kind of trendy churchman or clergyman. Originally, he is not from the church. He is from the Jewish background, but he invented himself as a church person, etc., etc. That's what I mean by his record of lying. But he was a liar. So when he was made chair of the report about poverty, so-called in Tower Hamlets, by Lutfur Rahman, who launched the corrupt enterprise at an event held in the corrupt Toynbee Hall, or corruptly controlled Toynbee Hall at 28 Commercial Street, London E1. And Giles Fraser was connected to The Guardian, as I said, as a columnist. And Alan Rusbridger was the editor of The Guardian. And with that, Giles Fraser being the chair of this so-called committee, was Guardian editor Alan Rusbridger's partner or wife, Lindsay McKee. And anyone can find that report online by searching this report. Now, there are several lies attached to this report, or its commission, or its perpetration because it was perpetuating the lying myth that Lutfur Rahman was doing something original and something kind of essential for the people of Tower Hamlets. It was an absolute, utter pack of lies. Lutfur Rahman knew he was lying. Giles Fraser knew he was lying. Alan Ravishaw knew he was lying. Lindsay McKee knew he was lying. And the lie was that this commission, it was called, glorified as a commission. It had about 7 or 8 or 9 members. They were handpicked, and they were picked on the basis or on the condition or as part of the agenda that they would be telling lies in a package that pretended to be telling the truth about poverty in Tower Hamlets. When it came out, it was an absolute rubbish, as it was bound to be. Because the poverty that commission so-called investigated was not the poverty that is traceable to the behavior and the decision of Tower Hamlets Council. Remember what we are talking about? We are talking about Shamima Begum being betrayed by Tower Hamlets Council, and the context of all of that is obviously ongoing. The various claims that racist supporters of the kind of decision by the then Home Secretary, so-called, the bus driver's son, Pakistani bus driver's son, Sajid Javid, imposed as the Home Secretary made to deprive Shamima Begum of her British nationality, which she had by birth, not some kind of secondary process. And it is the same Tower Hamlets Council regime that allowed Giles Fraser, Lindsay McKee, and Alan Ravishaw's guardian and its London blogger, so-called Dave Hill, to publish serial lies over 6 calendar years of Lutfur Rahman's corrupt incumbency in the corrupt post of the elected mayor. That council had formed, let's say, the Tower Hamlets Council, its most kind of regular and reliable identity in terms of delivery of its duties is that it doesn't deliver the duties. So it's a council in denial. It's a corrupt council neglecting its legal and other duties as normal. So when, this program aired in the last kind of 12 hours or the last 14 hours, a Siloti language kind of program edition. And I appeared, but the person who took part was not on screen. They came online by phone and they spoke on the phone. We shall come to that and we shall update on that, because we shall not repeat that kind of discussion again, because there was obviously a very deep kind of hole in the gap in the kind of context. A lot of information was not understood in the community, and that came across in the words of that caller, if you like. Most of the facts that we are dealing with are of the standard, the highest currency, if you like, latest high caliber information, not high caliber in terms of the impact on the community or in terms of the impact on the people affected by the wrong decisions. What we mean is by the behavior and the contents of the likes of the Guardian. Remember, we're talking about Doha or Dubai, and it all connects stage by stage. That is the extent of the intensity and the currency of our commentary and our diagnosis. So that is not available anywhere, and that is not present in any of the stated statements by any member of the, let's say, UK Bangladeshi community. We're talking about Shamima Begum, and the people are not aware of basic facts. People meaning Bangladeshi community persons who, compared to the main body of the Bangladeshi community, are kind of less asleep, and they make comments with one another. They exchange messages through the WhatsApp and whatever. We don't have any use for WhatsApp. We don't do that. But they do. I mean, various groups exist with the WhatsApp. And what they exchange, or what gets exchanged among the WhatsApp group members, is not substantial, and it's not accurate, and it's not informed, and it's not contextual, and it is absolutely devoid of any understanding of ordinary law, constitutional law, democracy, administrative law, or the legal structure, or the international content of the international agreements and conventions. So to discuss Shamima Begum, who is dismissively referred to as a girl from a poor background in Bethnal Green, is far from showing kind of contemptuous sympathy for a unfortunate child. We are raising her level. Our campaign has raised Shamima Begum's, if you like, level of rightful legal rights to the highest constitutionally, factually possible level. And today's daily Boris Graph, that is to say the lying, racist, anti-Muslim title called The Telegraph, has got a piece by its so-called comments editor, who lists her kind of academic locations in London, very university locations. But she is as corrupt, as ignorant, as much in darkness as any so-called unschooled or uneducated racist idiot would be. She puts standard form English sentences together, but she puts them as sentences of corruption and denial and hatred, and spews stupidities like confusing Shamima Begum with the Islamic community. Shamima Begum wasn't doing anything that factually can be traced to ordinary Islamic behavior. Whatever has been reported, and we have no connection with Shamima Begum as such, what we are doing is upholding the rights that she has been entitled to and has been denied. And we don't have to have contracts with her. And we have no plan that we will have any contracts with her in the near future, if at all ever. We are upholding the highest international legal standards and arguments on behalf of a child, which is what we are treating her in the context of the years in which she was denied her rights. So the Guardian had Dave Hill as the London blogger throughout the 6 calendar years. Now, Dave Hill was completely on another planet. He still is. He has got another outfit called On London, which is a blog which is completely stuffed with insulting, embarrassing, idiotic observations. It doesn't excite interest. It doesn't encourage the mind, to look at the moral crisis affecting our world. It is lame, lazy, stupid, opportunistic, creepy, cringe-making, corrupt, typical corruption by Dave Hill. Like he praises Roxana Fia's next door borough in Newham. And he did praise her in the run-up to the nomination as Labour Party candidate for mayor at the expense of Newham. nomination of Roxana Fias. So what I'm talking about, the Guardian's failings and Guardian form, is actually about the Guardian's immorality. The Guardian's big immorality and lying and corruption. Nothing that the Daily Mail reader or the Daily Mail supporters or the racists and the kind of fascists that support the Daily Mail and subscribe to the kind of insulting phrase Guardian reader. None of that ever reaches the factual accuracy and the moral height of our analysis of the Guardian's lying. And what the Guardian has done in the years since these children were reported to have crossed into Syria through Turkey, it has not examined. It has never examined what we are daily updating on and examining: the legality, the morality, the constitutionality, the international law obligations that were flouted, violated, and betrayed and neglected by the likes of the local council. Remember what he said about the role of the Guardian in peddling the lying lines of the local councils across England. As part of that, the Guardian hid the facts or went on the mode of denial about any knowledge of the existence of the duty by all local councils to safeguard children. If they weren't in that mode of denial, they would have, from the very beginning, talked about these children, Shamima Begum and the other 4 girls, and they would have asked questions. But they didn't. And the fact that they didn't was a deliberate, intentional act. It wasn't an accident. And we challenge anyone. We challenge anyone factually, evidentially, contextually, legally, morally, ethically, to disagree with us with facts, with evidence. Don't disagree with us because you want to troll us or something. We're not interested, and we don't, treat trolls as any impediment. We just block you or we just ignore you. We never engage with trollers and trolls. What we engage with is substantially active, intellectually, morally active and engaged contacts. Anyone contacting us on those bases, we shall contact duly, but not otherwise. But we know, because we do the research, we know from Washington, D.C., taking all the big capitals in the USA, meaning capitals like Los Angeles and other state capitals, there is no program that is doing what we are doing. And we know about all the big outlets coming out of the USA. Every outlet, including the big named ones that have been supporting the Democrats, let's say. They are not anywhere near what level we operate on, intellectually, morally, evidentially. And so this extrapolates right across Australia and New Zealand and the remnants of the British Empire in Southern Africa, where they have the same kind of copy of the media, and Western Europe, including, although France is not part of British Empire legacy, but the point is that they are, in agenda terms, in terms of the hostility, in the context of Shamima Begum, the hostility to Muslims, they have the same narrative. For example, when the Charlie Hebdo attack by the 2 so-called Muslim brothers, French Muslim brothers, mounted, the instant, immediate reaction and response to that by the French media, Le Monde, etc., was identical to what the British counterparts did, what the American counterparts did in New York, in Washington, D.C., whatever. And that was all wrong. And what the Guardian is doing today about Dubai is wrong, because it's, as we say, tickling. The Guardian is so timid, and its writers and columnists and experts and others are so corrupt that they never tell the truth about the likes of this Rashid Al Maktoum. This is a criminal, but they never call him the criminal, and they never campaign for the actual holding to account this criminal and his likes and his ilk right across the exploited parts of Arabia, including Saudi Arabia. Because that is like the source of all their illicit resources and wealth and theft and exploitation by the West. By the West, I mean the establishment, not the ordinary people, because the ordinary people, including the 52% of the gullibles in England, the little Englanders, they are being exploited and denied the basic international standard of rights and say in what happens to them, in what happens to their rights being robbed daily by the likes of the Johnson-fronted cabal of crooks. So we go to the trade unions, so-called. And Corbyn, who is intellectually dysfunctioning and unfit for purpose, was an instrument, as a stooge and extension of the corrupt barons of the trade union bureaucracies. And they have completely been exposed, caught out. They gave the election, they handed the election, 2019, December 2019 election, to Boris Johnson and his cabal. So we come back to Tower Hamlets with Lindsay McKee, Dave Hill, Giles Fraser being aided and abetted and deployed by the then Guardian editor, Alan Ravisher. Now, anyone so far feeling that I'm being a bit too direct in my criticism of these crooks must pause for a minute. I have got the ability and the skills to be completely banal and express idiotic phrases of courtesy and style and whatever. If I did that, then I would be repeating the same thing that I'm here to oppose and diagnose and identify so that people can get enlightenment. That's the reason. Secondly, everything I say, however I say it, if I say somebody is crook instead of saying he is challenged or something, is very thoroughly fact-checked and is based on evidence. Nothing I say can be factually challenged. And nothing I say can be kind of dismissed or undermined by trying to connect it to any personal interest that I seek to derive from this commentary. So we shall be coming to the itemized discussion in the next part. Let's put an end to this one here.